we don't spiral down into the situation where like now you're at the mercy of the clinician to make those decisions for you.
Right.
What can we do ahead of time to ensure that we are prepared? And I think it's interesting me in 2018,
Mhm.
both my husband and I trained to become Lamaze certified childbirth educators and doulas. So we both, that was a transformative time for us because it allows us to look back to our experiences
Mhm.
and draw from it so that we are able to empower other families. And I say all the time to my clients that I like to be very top heavy because as a public health professional, it's better to focus on prevention than try to deal with an outcome that we could have just prevented from the get-go. So
Right.
the earlier we can get with families to get them prepared for their birth experience, the better.
Mhm.
But guess what? It's not just mom and dad, right? Because
Right.
grandma, aunt, uncle, cousin,
Yeah.
grandpapa, everybody's going to chime in. So when we started our effort together, we started in baby showers, actually. We
Okay.
started to educate families with proper childbirth concepts
Excellent.
in the baby shower opportunity where everybody is engaged
Together. Oh
and
yeah.
present. And so we since the pandemic, we haven't jumped back in so much as before, but the goal is to really empower and educate the whole village because once, like for example, I've worked in perinatal nursing for the past 8 years. I've done labor and delivery, I've done postpartum, I've done a little bit of nursery and things like that. We do a little bit of education, then we say goodbye, go home, bye bye. But when you focus on community health, and which is our focus now, you're able to bring the whole village together
Oh, oh,
to
yes.
ensure that you're doing whatever you can to equip those village people because those are the people that matter, not the nurses and not the doctors at this point.
Oh, and that is just such a powerful statement because, one of the questions I ask parents and, when we're talking about birth stories is like the pushback. Did you, especially if you're choosing alternative methods in birthing or breastfeeding or what have you, that it's not necessarily alternative because that's really like the original indigenous way in which we birth. But now that, we are in Western medicine, related society, some of those concepts seem more foreign. And a lot of times the pushback comes from those who are closest to you. Like your mom is like, oh my gosh, you want to do what at home?
Exactly. That's
you don't want to, these bottles, you don't have to go through all of that. So, like you're saying,
that's
that
right.
it is the community, it is the village. If we are all on board, if we all have this information that we're pulling from, and as the parents who are making the decisions, we feel empowered and supported, that's a whole different experience.
Absolutely. And you know what I've been telling a lot of families these days as well, especially when it comes to having birth in the community, either at home, at the birth center, that is the activism that
Mm,
we need to create in our communities, especially for Black people. Because what we're doing, what we're telling on the medical complex is that no, I'm taking control of my birth. And I'm going to do it in such a way that I am upholding my safety. I am
mhm.
upholding my well being, but I'm also bringing it uh, into full ownership of myself. And the more families who are doing this at whatever level, the better. We call ourselves Hello Baby events
Okay.
because I come from a culture that loves to celebrate. We love to plan an event. So, if I'm planning a wedding, I got a wedding planner on point, right? I got a huge venue. I got
Mhm,
somebody who's doing the core for the event. There's somebody on the cake, on the
mhm.
catering. Somebody got my shoes taken care of. I got a tailor. I got a hairdresser. So there's so many people and factors that it comes to actually planning an event.
Mhm.
So imagine planning for your next of kin, your legacy, the next person
Oof.
coming into your home and into your village. And so how do we take that whole event
Mhm.
and plan it so on D-Day you guys are shining?
Mm.
It makes sense because if you on the childbirth education, when you got your lactation education done nice and early so you understand the process,
Yeah.
and you take ownership of your birth, no matter what setting that you desire, you choose the venue, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the day, this is an event that's going to change your life. You should be in full ownership of it, and you should be allowed to shine. And that's really what we're working to do in our community health efforts right now.
That is so powerful. And I truly appreciate that. So, one of the things that you mentioned is that there was some impact by COVID as far as in person
Mm.
events. Are there any opportunities for that to be virtual, or is there a rollout about how that's going to continue moving forward?
Thank you for that. Well, I'm hoping we're starting to get excited this summer because people are starting to get out
Good.
and be more healthy and have less exposure and less morbidity, I guess, with the pandemic. But um, I think nowadays we have definitely been focused on each family at a time.
Okay.
Just like you kind of said, like these individual villages, you know. For
Mhm.
example, as a birth nurse, I had the privilege of actually getting to know my clients before their birth, as
Mhm.
opposed to a labor and delivery nurse where it's like, hey, I'm Tia, I'm your nurse today, and then I'm this person that's going to experience your whole this transformative experience with you, and I'm you meeting me for the
Just met.
first time.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
so where I serve right now, I serve with the midwives at Birth Care and Women's Health. They have established themselves in such a way that they would like their birth assistants, or as I say, birth nurse, to
Mhm.
get to know the client ahead of the birth, and that gives us the opportunity to begin to discuss. What are your plans? What are you guys doing? Is it Bradley you guys are doing? Is it
Okay.
evidence-based birth,
Mhm.
Lamaze, or what is it you guys are doing? How can I support you in the process of your learning? Who is your doula? What? You don't have a doula? Well, let's rethink this. Let's
Right,
rethink
right.
this.
Here's a list. Like,
Let's rethink this. You've never done this before, so you might not understand what the doula is there for, but really,
yeah.
they're the second most important person in the room.
Yes.
So helping families to kind of wrap their minds around those kind of things, what it really means to be ready. And one of the most fun part is if it's a home birth, I get to go to their home and help set up the home for their home birth. And that can be really, I really find joy in that,
Mhm.
especially watching the intentionality of families as they prepare. So it's something that we don't get to do in the hospital. We don't get to meet folks ahead of time. It's really when we show up on our shift and we say hello. That's the first time. There's no place for prevention, and so I shine so much better in community health right now because of that prevention part.
Wow. And that again is just this is so powerful, and it's a consistent message of the importance of preparation. Like this is such a significant process to beforehand. And like you said, just the difference in what that experience is like. Because I can only imagine. I feel like my birth team is family, right? Because we've been in some intimate spaces together a few times. So I love them. But like you said, to just meet somebody the day of, it's like, and we're used to that, right? Like for you to be like, how I'll be your labor and delivery nurse. We're used to that. That makes sense. Okay, I trust that process. But like you were saying, if we have these relationships that we built up beforehand, when we're in this crunch of those intensities of this process that we're going through in our body, and you look up and you see a familiar face that you trust, or you hear that voice telling you, breathe through it, or what have you. It's a different energy in the space when I have my team with me in this process. So I just find it, very impactful. What you all are doing and how you all are setting up. And, I absolutely love birth care and women's health. So just to see how dynamic, what it is that you're bringing into this already phenomenal institution is just like, just the continuous. And I forward think to how impactful this is going to be for families as they're coming. And it's amazing the work that you all are doing and what you from your own experiences are bringing into this space. So what are the things, if people are listening and they, they might not be pregnant just yet, but they are considering and they want to kind of get their ducks in a row, what are some of the things that you all may offer? And is there anything that you all offer virtually if someone is not in the DMV area?
Absolutely. We we're focused a lot on education. We teach Lamaze, which is actually a very much wider type of job at DC. We really believe in preparation, and we've definitely sat down with couples who are either planning to be pregnant or early in their pregnancy and trying to make decisions. Because the first decision you need to make is who you're going to have it, who's going to be your MC, who's
Right.
going to actually be the person who's going to be in charge of your event.
Mhm.
Who's that clinician? Is it going to be an OB for one or two reasons? Is it going to be a midwife? Who is that going to be? And sometimes people literally just pick up their insurance card and they're like, oh, mini, mini, money, mo. So we need
Yes.
to cut that. We need to
Yes.
cut that 100%. Cut that card off if you need to. But for real, because somehow they need to figure out, how do I get to step one, and what knowledge do I need to get to step one? So we are those people who are able to say, hey, these are the folks that are making it happen in the community. These are great options. And hey, before you even make a step towards calling your insurance about it, talk about the options that are available to you in
Oh,
preconception care, and very early in the pregnancy, because that's going to kind of really show how the rest of the prenatal care is going to look like. So we love doing that preconception kind of talking. And if we're talking to someone who's not in town, we have friends, right? We have
okay.
friends
Yeah.
who are
Yeah.
doing great work in other states and in other parts of the country and beyond. So that in that preliminary conversation needs to be happening for every family,
Oh, yes.
honestly. And then from then on, of course, we have Lamaze. We love evidence-based birth. I'm an evidence-based birth instructor, so we definitely promote that education, because it's especially helpful for people working to have their birth in the medical complex. It really does have a very in-depth training for those families in preparation for their own self-advocacy.
Okay.
Then we like to really focus on lactation education
Okay.
prenatally, because if a mom could really get their mind and understand the process in prenatal, then we're not struggling with the brand new baby trying to teach you this stuff for
Mhm,
the first
mhm,
time. And
mhm.
that was the biggest struggle I had as a nurse at the bedside. Trying to figure out how to teach them
Right.
in the moment is
Oh,
very, very difficult,
yeah.
right? I'm an
Mhm.
IBCLC as well, so that part is nice to see them on the front end and then also on the back end. And our dad chat. So that Dr. Ajao, he is a medical doctor trained in West Africa, but here he's more about his communication background.
Okay.
But he does do a dad chat from the doula dad doctor perspective.
That is phenomenal. And just that
It's
is amazing. And there's a few things that you said, especially in reference to vetting your care providers, and knowing kind of what their background